This video goes over Shakespeare's opera, The Magic Flute, which will be sourced from this image. Who knows who made it? It's totally anonymous. I'm not aware. Anyway, famous German polymath Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, when regarding the magic flute, if the multitude find pleasure only in what is actively visible, the initiated will not fail to perceive the higher meaning. So Mozart became an entered apprentice Freemason in December Anno Domini 1784, and in that time Freemasonry decidedly spread the ideals of Enlightenment Europe, tolerance, humanism, etc., and his later works, such as The Magic Flute, which was his final work, obviously carry heavy Masonic themes. So to begin, take the way the opera consistently deals in threes, and don't worry, I will elaborate on this later on. But to begin, Tamino is rescued by three spirits. He's eventually guided by three children. Sarastros' palace has 3 doors. Tamino has to go through 3 trials to join the Brotherhood, 3 degrees in a Blue Lodge, 33 degrees in a Scottish Rite. Remember Pythagoras, Solomon, Voltaire, Big deal. 3, right? That's a pretty major number. I meant to say Tamino earlier, by the way, not Tamina. Important distinction with the way the naming schemes work in this opera. So, The Magic Flute, or Die Zauberflöte, premiered on the 30th of September, 1791, just 2 months before Mozart's death. And it's theorized that his death, which was theoretically caused by poisoning, he fell very ill and died within a couple days of the illness. It's theorized to be due to his spilling of Masonic secrets through the methodology of opera, through the methodology of playwriting and musicianship, in which he demonstrated pretty clearly the introduction to Freemasonry. So the Magic Flute. Our main character, Tamino, he's this prince, and he's being pursued by this horrible serpent when the opera opens, and he comes across this big arched doorway, and sitting atop it is this bird catcher named Papageno. And Papageno announces to him that he killed this foul serpent, and Tamino, obviously confused, says, "What is this land? Where am I? This is strange, this is unfamiliar, this is weird, where the hell am I?" And Papageno says, "Oh, I don't know, I live here and I catch birds. I've got a big bird cage on my back and I catch them for the queen, her highness, the queen of the night." And so all of this is explained through song, but he does express his desire in the song to one day charm a woman. That is his prerogative. That's his number one shining light. That's what he wants to see. He wants to catch a beautiful, beautiful woman. He's grown tired of birds. And while he's explaining his triumph over this terrible serpent, these 3 little creatures appear, these 3 little spirits, and they explain it to me now. Actually, it was us. We killed the serpents. It's this silly, boisterous man did not kill them. It did not kill the serpent. That was us. But they did bring a gift from the Queen of the Night, and lo and behold, it's a portrait of the Queen of the Night's daughter, Pamina, who they hand this portrait to Tamino, who immediately falls in love. He says, "This is the most beautiful woman that I've ever seen," and says, "Oh, she's so beautiful. Why are you giving me this picture?" And they say, "Well, this beautiful woman has been kidnapped by this horrible demon. This horrible demon, Sarastros, has taken your lover that you've so deeply fallen in love with, So you better go save her. And he says, of course, I'm a chivalrous man. I'm a beautiful prince. Of course I'm going to go save Pamina. She's a damsel in distress. She's in trouble. I'm going to go take care of this terrible demon that's kidnapped her and bring her back to the Queen of the Night, her mother, whoever she needs to come back to. And they say, okay, well, if you do this, then you get to marry her. And to aid him on his quest, they grant him a magic flute. So that's their otherworldly gift to him. Then to Papageno, they grant these magical bells, these funny little, however they're represented in the opera, they're funny little, he has magic bells, everybody has an instrument, right? So, either way, Papageno ventures off. You go into the next song, and Papageno's venturing off, he's exploring, and he's spurred by lust. He has this idea that maybe he will find a woman on this journey. And through this little hole, he sees a pale-skinned woman with a shapely figure, and she's very beautiful. He says, wow, oh my god. And he peeks through the door to this garden that he's viewing her in, and only as he's viewing through it does this crazy little creature appear, who's Monostatos, the chief of Sarastros' slaves. And in the song you'll find this interesting. The BBC adaptation, at least, the Papageno proclaims, oh, it is Beelzebub himself. It is Beelzebub himself. Oh my god, what is this? What is this creature that's standing before me? So anyway, they both get startled by each other, but Papageno does make his way into the garden, and he meets with this woman that he saw through the however it would be represented. He would see her through the little keyhole in the door, or through the porthole, or whatever. And he realizes this is Pamina, who was in the picture. It's the Pamina. And she warns him, she says, Sarastros is going to find you. And meanwhile, while this is all going on, Tamino is pleading at the entrance of some large tree, and he's insisting that he knows the truth, and he wishes to be enlightened, and he wishes to enter this temple in which he will be led through a quest to save Pamina. And the man at the entrance is saying, no, 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 no. So the three spirits lead him to the entrance of Sarastros' temple, and assure that if he's steadfast and patient and wise, then he can reach Pamina. So while he's here at the temple entrance, Tamino is arguing with this guard. Anyway, he first, through song, he approaches the left-hand entrance, and he approaches this door, and he's denied by voices from beyond the door. They say, no, you're not going to come in. And the same happens at the entrance on the right. He approaches the right, and they say, no, you're not able to yet, you're blah, blah, blah. But when he reaches the entrance in the middle, the old priest finally allows him inside. And he tells Tamino that Sarastros is just benevolent and not evil, and that he shouldn't trust the Queen of the Night, and instead approach the temple. He needs to approach the temple with an attitude of grace and an attitude of friendship. And so Tamino plays his magic flute, and all these animals come out, and they appear and they dance around, and and then he hears Papageno's pipes sounding in the distance, and this mixes in with the aria, obviously. And they're both introduced eventually. You know, he's led into the temple because he figured out the key, and he's led in through the middle entrance. And they're introduced to Sarastros, who then reveals himself to be kind and wise. This kind, wise, benevolent leader, which is not at all what they expected of him. They expected him to be some disgusting demon, as the woman at the beginning illustrated. So I'm skipping a little bit past here. But anyway, our heroes are together, and the wise Sarastros decides our protagonist's courage and strength needs to be tried in a set of tests now that they're within the temple. And they're tied and blinded and led to the trials. And Papageno and Tamino decide wholeheartedly and enthusiastically to endure these trials. Tamino's motivation, of course, being in love with Pamina, and Papageno being promised, no bullshit here, a girl named Papagena, who is very tempted by. So, Sarastros and the Queen are obviously at odds. Sarastros reveals he kidnapped Pamina to save her from her evil mother, not to do anything naughty with her, right? So while Tamino and Papageno are enduring their tests, the Queen appears to Pamina and sings her famous aria, which is Der Hulerake kocht in meinem Herzen, which means a hellish rage burns inside my heart. But the Queen, her efforts are in vain, of course, and eventually Tamino and Pamina unite together and they face the trials of water and fire. And with the aid of his magic flute, he's able to overcome these. And Papageno does unite with his destined wife, Papagena, through the use of his magic bells. And it should be noted, if this is viewed as a Masonic initiation, the females would not be truly allowed, traditionally allowed enlightenment. It may be seen as more of a wedding, or simply symbolizing something else. This might not necessarily be the 3 degrees of the Blue Lodge or the 3 entrant points of Masonry, of the craft. But anyway, the Queen of the Night, it turns out, is she's bitter and angry. She hates that they succeeded. And in her hubris, not only that they succeeded, but that they did side with Sarastros, the man, and not with her dark feminine energy. And she's pissed, and she's angry, and she's bitter. And in her hubris, she tries to destroy the temple, and is then at the crux of the play is cast out into the darkness forever. And the sun rises. Sarastros announces a new dawn and enlightenment for all men, and everybody lives happily ever after. And beyond that, the opera also includes a couple rituals to Isis and Osiris. Musical instruments being used to illuminate a path and move forward, the idea of overcoming the fear of death, and in an alchemical sense, achieving immortality. It also constantly, throughout the whole thing, juxtaposes day and night. It's a very major theme. Or, black and white. And even the music itself, it covers 4 octaves, 5 octaves in some arias, where it's constantly reaching high, like that. And, all the way down to the... It's covering 5, almost... maybe 6 octaves at some points. But this all has to do with extreme juxtaposition. So to end this segment, I recommend you check the opera out. The British Broadcasting Corporation's animated adaptation from the 90s is, as far as I can tell, pretty faithful. It's very condensed, but it's got excellent animation. My mom sang in operas. I was in a few as a kid. I appreciate the medium a lot. And if you do too, I would recommend you take a gander. So, let's move on.
What's happening here? Have y'all lost your minds?
You have only so long to find yourself. After that, if you're still a stranger, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Check out my pipe, by the way. Anyway, for the uninitiated, the very first Freemason initiation ritual involves entering what, in America at least, in North America, in the US, we call the Blue Lodge. So, for the first degree, you're blindfolded, tattered clothes, you expose the left breast, and the right thigh, and you wear a thick noose-like rope around the neck. And then you, as the initiate, are led to the door of the lodge, and you must beg to be brought from the darkness into the light, and you undergo this oath, which it's all supposed to theoretically replicate, this is rumored, but obviously true, a medieval heretic being brought to the gallows, swearing his own death and making suicidal gestures. You have to, cut the hand across the throat. You have to swear that your tongue will be torn out if you reveal any secrets. Your legs will be chopped. You'll be dismembered if you reveal any secrets. And of course, all the major rituals usually involve reenacting one's own death and darkness and entering a new world of light, especially the first. So, when you're brought up to the door of the temple, you need to say, I've lived in darkness all my life. I wish to see the light, which that right there, that's renouncing Christ. If you're considering yourself a Christian walking up to performing this Masonic ritual, which many do, many Protestants, in fact, I think it's something like a huge amount of American Protestants are Freemasons as well. In the Blue Lodge, at least, probably at first 3 degrees, but they still are, and that means they have renounced. They've claimed that they lived in darkness their whole life, claiming that they weren't living with God. Interesting. So this is all pretty typical if you've researched anything without being initiated into the order yourself, hopefully. You've heard all this already. The deeper points are only accessed by those with the context through which the degrees and rituals initiate you into. And to decipher these lessons, in reality, the lessons are contextual in themselves, which it allows the more spiritually powerful members to achieve a higher status. Hence the degree system. The stairs, they resemble Jacob's ladder. If you truly understand what's being laid down in context, with reality, you can enter heaven. This in itself is a kind of ritual, weeding out the spiritually weak and trying to promote the would-be prophets of our time. Yeah. So I won't reveal the regard, but I'm very close with a former 32nd degree Freemason, and he was the leader of his Scottish Rite Lodge here, and he's since renounced Masonry for a long time. But even through faith in Christ, which he has converted to, he will still not freely reveal his secrets. But the last conversation I had with him, he did mention this book he read, which described this man traveling through the Kentucky cave system and reaching, I can't remember if it may have been Agartha, it's some kind of Hollow Earth type thing, where all these secrets are revealed to him through the Kentucky cave systems, and this main character decides to spread this knowledge to the world against the better judgment of his fraternal order. which is, it's kind of an inversion of the fraternity. It's an inversion of the craft, inversion of the Masonic law. He decides to reveal to the people of the world everything he's realized. I haven't been able to find this book, so if anybody in the comments knows what book this is, I would like to be informed of it. So anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the trestle board, you should look it up. And these determine our entered apprentice or initiate Freemason's life paths. It's kind of like a chart determining the architecture of one's life. If you ever see the columns and the ladders and the stairs, it's this. You would know it if you saw it. These are often mistaken with, like, tracing boards, which are a totally different thing. Tracing boards can trace their roots back to very early Masons who were demonstrating their path for the day on the floor, usually in sand, just as like an engineer or a literal tradesman Mason would. And so they would map out the day's rituals in chalk or in sand, and mirror the Masons' trade architectural plans rather than their literal life path. The trestle board represents the true life path. So anyway, I'm pretty sure a layman could take a look at a trestle board and draw a Zelda dungeon based off it. A lot of people have drawn parallels with Peach's Castle in Mario 64, checkerboard floors, sun in betwixt, the stairs leading up after, going to the left to collect stars, then going to the right, and finally traveling up the center to continue. Maybe it sounds familiar, right? And while I think these comparisons are accurate, they kind of stop there. I saw this guy on X that, he made some shitty thread based off the theory, which just kind of like fell apart after 5 solid tweets that were pretty good, and then it just goes kaput. Anyway, I think Majora's Mask is much, much firmer example of symbolism and ritual explored by Nintendo. So, listening to accomplished and former Masons speak has sent shivers down my spine. And these guys all seem to drop out at the Scottish Rites 32nd degree, whether it be the growing of a conscience or because the 33rd is reserved for people of importance. Maybe they stopped there. Maybe they, you know. That's what they all say, is that the 33rd is reserved for highly revered, highly influential people. So, it's for people who are considered thought leaders that can exact the Order's will on people subliminally or symbolically. The 32nd degree is deemed sublime prince of the royal secret. And it's pretty harrowing. It's hearing different accounts of what the royal secret is. Right? Because a lot of people reach this degree and have no initiation into what the royal secret exactly is. They're just the keeper of the royal secret. They're not meant to actually have it revealed to them yet. And most people dedicate a lifetime to these practices. I could go on for hours and hours about this stuff, but I'll just leave some convenient references in the video description. And I'll let you use this video as a jumping off point if you want. There's a lot of people you can listen to, a lot of people you can look at. I would say don't trust all of them. A lot of them are very obviously tenuous, I would say. But anyway, let's get to the good stuff. Majora's Mask. We see a virtuous man and his compatriot, Tamino and Papageno, wander through life following their base desires, chasing after what's traditionally in their world considered good, until through fraternal effort between themselves and a divine hand, which are the spirits and the magic instruments, they're initiated into a world of light, and the world they were living in is revealed to be the real subversion. Link's initiation into Termina is interesting because he journeys through a dark forest. This is all in the beginning. His fall is illustrated with these hallucinations, and immediately we're met with the power of Majora, and he kneels to view his reflection, and he screams because his Deku body terrifies him, and he emerges from the darkness into this new world with new plans and new goals, entirely separate from his silly little quest in Hyrule that Ocarina of Time was defined by. So, theories have always circled around, right, Link is dead, you ever hear that one? There are plenty of Majora's Mask creepypastas as well. I mean, Ben Drown, go ahead, go off anything. But there's the big theory that Link is dead in Majora's Mask for the exact same reasons. It's because it's a Masonic ritual involving reenacting one's own death. Shedding your clothes, shedding your life, waking up in a strange, new, illuminated world like Termina. Speaking of Termina, parallels can be found, like Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, The Snow Queen. If you've ever heard that, in The Snow Queen, the devil holds up a false mirror to humanity. And in the false mirror, it makes everything appear dreadful and reversed and horrible and awful. And he says, look at this. This is your real life. Something to consider. You can even look at the names in Majora's Mask, and the phonetics should sound a bit familiar to the Magic Flute. So see if you can pick out which of these names are from the Magic Flute and which are from Majora's Mask. Epona, Tamino, Zabora, Malin, Talon, and Pamina. Even compare Tattle and Tail, two opposite fairies, light and dark in constant struggle. Two names juxtaposed in a similar vein to someone like Papageno and Papagena. In some context, you could even view Papageno as Tattle, wanting to be reunited with Tail, or Papagena. And if you remember, Tattle has his little ding 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 little bells, you know? So, Majora in the game is shown to be cruel, chaotic, and evil, while the chivalrous Prince Link is steadfast, patient, and wise, right? But our protagonist has to subvert himself and become a deity, while pushed to do so by three children, just like in the opera, to defeat Majora. Like when you go to the moon at the end of the game, which is a feminine planet, by the way. Another interesting point is that the boss rooms in this game are almost always entered from the west when looking at the full map. So Ezekiel 8:16 says, "He then brought me to the inner court of the house of the Lord, and there at the entrance to the temple between the portico and the altar were about 25 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord and their faces towards the east. They were bowing down to the sun in the east." And the Masonic congregation, of course, faces east towards the worshipful master. Their backs face the Lord's temple, and the worshipful master faces God. He faces towards his congregation. Note, too, how each boss has three phases, which only become a constant in this N64 era of Zelda, and the entry into the third dimension. The three deities give gifts and combine into one in the N64 Zelda lore, which is also shown at the beginning of the British Broadcasting Corporation's Magic Flute adaptation, which I think is exclusively in that. I don't think that's actually in the official Mozart play. As an aside, I thought this was fucking weird. Freemasons call people like me Cohens. Someone who could or desires to learn the secrets of Freemasonry without being entered into the order. I haven't been able to find etymology for that. I think it's just an old Scottish name. It was probably a guy in the early Scottish temple. But yeah, I think it was a guy in the early practice. Anyway, it's no wonder Majora's Mask still seen as the darkest and most symbolic and most mysterious Zelda game. Tons of theories, creepypasta, analyses, soaked in deep mysticism which roots itself in between the global East and West. You may say Freemasonry may not be considered wholly evil, like a whole lot of faggy video essay YouTubers. If you look up anything about Freemasonry on YouTube, it's all this garbage about, oh, I think they're just a guys club, guys. I think they're totally cool. Actually, it seems completely normal. It's, oh my god. These fucking hylics that have no concept of any higher ideal. You gotta think to yourself, it's only because it's a doorway to spiritual exploration, right? Or power worship. You think these higher up people are just like exploring? Like, I'm just a guy who's exploring. Oh, I'm just a guy who hangs out with other guys and eats sandwiches and thinks about God, I guess. No, they're going through highly detailed, highly specific rituals. There is no conceivable way that they sit on their ass all day and don't consider the implications of any of this, right? And I think most Masons probably even believe that, and that's why 90% of American Masons don't make it past the 3rd degree, which is a real statistic. You can look that. I don't know if it's 90%, but the vast majority of Masons never make it past the Blue Lodge even. They never make it to the Scottish Rite, they never make it to the York Rite, they never make it to any place beyond the first 3 degrees, because they're hylics. They're idiots, they openly spill secrets. Which they should, but that's only in my opinion. If I were the one running this covert society, I wouldn't like them either, and I would keep them exactly there to represent to the rest of the world, look at all these idiots that we have in our order. How can we be evil? They're just these dummies that get drunk all the time. And with Nintendo, in regards to that, you might be thinking, oh, they're Japanese, they don't really understand, But we're not talking about Hideaki Anno, who admitted himself that he just throws in mystic, Jewish, and Christian symbolism because it looks cool. That's what he said regarding Evangelion. We're talking about Nintendo, alright? This isn't one guy. This is a multinational mega corporation. So if anybody in Japan were to be clued in on this stuff, I think it would be them. And these people have a spark of death in their eyes. Maybe Majora's Mask is the royal secret. So anyway, I think Hell's extremely colorful, like a kid's cartoon, or a salvia trip, or a video game. And it's common to see obviously possessed people obsessed with this kitschy color, and childish mascots, and crappy art. Wink wink. You're on crack. Your brain's been trained on this. Get a fucking grip. I am star-eyed and spell-struck and so far beyond you. You will remember my name.